lifestyle has caught fire, and we talk about the rewards and challenges of it. This is the Wandering Worker Podcast with Matt Lloyd.
Welcome to another episode of The Wandering Worker. I'm your host, Matt Lloyd. The Wandering Worker is powered by Bacheler Technologies, where we've been saving good businesses from bad phone systems since 2008. Whether you're tuning in from the comfort of your home office, a cafe, or exploring a new corner of the world, this podcast is your compass to navigate the ever-evolving landscape of remote work. We'll uncover invaluable insights, share personal stories, and connect with experts who have mastered the art of wandering while working. And we have one of those experts with us today. Today, my guest is Zack Moscow. How you doing, Zack?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being here. So before we get into the deep conversation of everything, we do random silly 5 questions. Sometimes they're silly, sometimes they're kind of serious, but we'll see what they're going to give us today. I don't like that one. And some of these random ones I just skip over. Okay, this one we asked earlier. What is your theme song?
Ooh, that's a good question. I feel like the theme song for Nashville, we were just talking about this before we got on, should be called the Immigrant Song by Zeppelin.
Yeah.
with everybody coming in. I guess for me, oh man, that's a good one. How about Ramblin' Man by the Allman Brothers?
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah,
but
that's a very good
happy
one.
to be landed here in Nashville, at least for the last 5 years.
Nice. What issue will you always speak your mind about?
Education. Particularly public education, product of public schools.
Same here.
It's always been a big point of emphasis for my wife and I and our kids, and I just really see the value in that, funding it, and it's just a big passion for me.
I can tell. Very good. What do you ever sing when you're alone? And if you do sing, what songs? Because you're a musician.
All the time. Right.
Yeah.
I'm a musician. I'm a keyboard player, so I'm not a singer, which is why I can really only sing while
you're alone. Yeah.
But yeah, everything. I definitely grew up and started playing music to a lot of classic rock stuff. We just talked about Zeppelin and the Allman Brothers, but really just about anything will vibe with me, and definitely a sing in the shower type.
I'm usually the only guy in the room who's not a musician, and again, it's happened today. You're a keyboardist, Jim's a drummer. That's basically what usually happens. I'm the only one in the room with no musical talent whatsoever.
Especially in this town.
This town, yeah, it happens way too often. What was your best birthday? We had this one earlier. It was a good one.
Oh, man. That's a good one. I don't know if I can pick one, but I will tell you this. I've always loved shrimp from as long as I can remember. Mm-hmm. And this is temporally relevant because it's in the news. But from age like 4 to 13, I'd always request Red Lobster for the endless shrimp promotion, which may have been their undoing. I don't know if you all followed that piece of news. Yeah, Red Lobster, Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
Oh my gosh, seriously?
This week or last week. But anyway.
Wow.
Yeah, for a long stretch of life, endless shrimp at Red Lobster, that's about as good as it got. For me,
that's
as you
awesome.
can tell, I'm kind of food motivated.
Yeah, food music. All right, last question. If you could live in a book, TV show, or movie, what would it be?
Man. This is an awkward silence. This is really a good one.
This is one of the better ones that pops up.
Yeah, that's really
because you get to kind of learn a lot about somebody when they tell you what they're into.
Yeah, you see, in the book world, I really read a lot of like historical fiction and biographies and stuff like that. So I've really been heavily into the golden age of Hollywood.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's the recent one. The one with Brad Pitt and
Babylon.
No, it was a Tarantino. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time in
so
Hollywood.
So yeah, like that era of L.A. and Hollywood.
That'd be kind of cool.
Still a little rough around the edges, still gritty.
Yeah,
yeah, that feels good.
Not as finely polished as it is today.
I'm not a super polished guy anyway, so that checks out.
That's great. Well, thanks for answering those questions and taking that time with us. Can you briefly introduce yourself and your background? Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I'm Zack, musician, ex-musician, but proud Nashville resident. I've been in the entrepreneur space for really my whole career post-music. Most of that was in actually the adult beverage industry. So helped start a brewery, ran a wine import company. I've always been into tech and always been into systems optimization and processes and organization and as I was considering a career shift. I got 2 kids now. The alcohol industry is not really conducive to nights at home and not traveling a lot. So I really wanted to figure out something else. And with that interest in tech and a lot of experience in helping, again, build out organizational processes and systems, this seemed like a great fit. So I got hooked up with the Bacheler Technologies guys about 2 years ago and have been helping them really refine messaging and go to market and helping us scale our business here in Nashville.
Yeah, because they were from Mobile, right, or Montgomery, and then they just moved into Nashville, and just in the last couple of years when they purchased, it was Jeter IT.
That's exactly
we used to work with a lot.
That's exactly right.
And we partner together. We you guys have helped get us into some stuff, and we're helping you guys with some stuff too. And it's a great relationship and
complementary relationship.
Yeah, absolutely, because we don't do that, and y'all don't do this, so it's been good. So. What are you guys focusing right now on Bacheler as far as like what you're trying to grow, what you're pushing? What's the big thing you're doing right now?
Yeah, I mean, we really need to be pretty holistic in how we look at optimizing and protecting an organization's IT infrastructure, from their networking to their devices to their users. So again, it's really holistic in essentially outsourcing that IT role and that chief information officer role to our team. So really the sweet spot for us is organizations, call it 5 to 50 employees, right? Where there's a lot of employees, there's a lot of protected data, there's a lot of importance and emphasis on cybersecurity and data security and access and asset management, but maybe not enough resources to really build out that team internally.
Staff augmentation type stuff,
Sure,
and being a vendor that can really partner and take on the workload, not just provide a service and that's it.
Workload, and also, I mean, I really think that strategy piece is important. Like really thinking through what's your 1 year, 5 year, 10 year plan in terms of growth, in terms of scaling, in terms of going further beyond where you are, and the impacts that that's going to have on, again, your tech, your systems, your tools, your processes, and making sure that we're giving you really solid advice that sets a good foundation now that is scalable for later.
Obviously the big thing that's kind of hit us in the last year or so has been the emergence of AI and what's happening there. What are you guys seeing is like, what's real world application use today versus where you think it'll be in 2 or 3 years?
I mean, that's a really tough question. I think that's at the forefront of everybody's minds. We're on our end, we're looking at, tools that are using AI for a lot of things. I think threat detection is probably the biggest one.
Yeah.
Right. In taking in a lot of inputs and being able to really quickly analyze those into actionable things for our team of engineers. From organizations that we work with, the one rule of AI, at least as far as I've seen, is the importance of your data sanitization and protection, right? Because your AI, those insights are only as good as the source data that it pulls from.
Right.
So, that goes back into cleaning up and really being careful in how you're migrating things and your file organization. And it also deals a lot with making sure that those files can't get touched by the outside. So from our perspective, the AI application only starts when you have a really good base and foundation. A lot of the things that we talk with our clients about and the things that we care about internally are making sure that data is pristine, right? That's really the first.
Right. So like once you get the data where you want it and then managing and maintaining and the moving around and everything there, are you saying that as of today, even that there's AI tools that are actually able to do that work for you right now?
Oh, absolutely.
Wow. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, listen, I'm the business development guy, right?
Yeah.
I'm not the senior engineer. So I am not qualified enough to tell you the nuts and bolts of how it works.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But I mean, what's evident to me, I was just out in Las Vegas 3 weeks ago at a big cybersecurity conference, and there are so many new tools and technologies that are popping up. And a lot of them are really relevant for this podcast because they're dealing with, what we call SASE or secure access service. Service Edge. Yeah. Which is the kind of next generation of cybersecurity cloud tool kit that's out there that really is going to use AI for a lot of that threat detection stuff. So that stuff is happening now. It's starting at the enterprise level, but it's really coming to small to mid-sized businesses that are in our sweet spot.
Right. I think it's one of these things where, like, I'm in tech. It's a different side of it, of course, but when we talk about AI and all this kind of stuff, so it's so easy for small entrepreneurs and small business owners and whatever to think of AI and pigeonhole it into that one thing of Chat GPT and prompting and those type things, because that's the most accessible, right? That's the one that we can go log on right now and I can go have it do something. But to have it actually start to do those type roles, I mean, those are roles that you would normally have to pay somebody a nice chunk of money to be able to do, or take a ton of somebody that you're already paying a nice chunk of money to out of their day to do that. And I think, there was a thing I saw this morning on one of the news morning shows, and it was talking about AI and the fear of the general population of negatively or positively or don't care. 51% think negatively of AI. I have to think a lot of it has to do with James Cameron personally, but 51% have a negative opinion of AI, and then 30% where they didn't care.
Sure.
And then the rest of it was a positive. And it's like, man, it's a tool. I think if we see it as a tool and not a world dominating, force.
I mean, maybe we'll be there in 10 years. I don't know. I mean, I think my word right now is caution, right?
Yeah.
And we're looking at these tools. We've onboarded some of them, but at the end of the day, before anything actionable is happening on that end, it's going through a human double check process on our end, right, to validate that with a human eye, and that's one to cover our backs, right, before you let a program start to mess with somebody's tech infrastructure, permissions, policies. That gets really, really iffy, from a security standpoint for us. Again, maybe we'll be there in 5 years. I don't know. We're exploring it.
Yeah.
And we're vetting it, and we're gathering as much intel and use case as we can, but we are not ready to take our hands off the wheel.
Yeah,
to
and
use the self-driving car analogy.
This question is really just straight an opinion. You don't have to have any kind of knowledge, just your opinion on this and what you think. Do you think manufacturers and the creators of the current AI tools and solutions that are out there are taking the time to stop and think about those exact things of, hey, we need to slow roll this out. We don't need to just go it because it can do it. We don't need to just say yes because it can. Are we really thinking about, is this something we should be doing versus it can do it and sell it? Do you feel like...
I sure hope so.
I do too, right? But it's kind of hard to tell.
I sure hope so. I mean, just like any other industry, right? First to market has a huge advantage, right? Yeah. And I understand that there's a lot of financial pressure. There's a lot of investor pressure to really be first and capitalize on that. It seems like, again, as to the best of my knowledge, the way that these boards are structured, the way that they have governance set up, that there are checks and balances on this. Obviously, what happened at OpenAI a few months ago is a really good example of that, right? In having those controls set, but having people really trying to push the envelope as much as they can to get stuff through. As far as I can tell from the people that I've talked to and what I've read, it seems like that exists. Obviously, there's just so much. There's so much money. There's so much market at stake here that I think the fear is that we'll see some of those morals, ethics get diluted in the race to first place.
It's kind of one of those things where a lot of times those questions they come down to a person. You have to be able to make those decisions for yourself and say those things. But this is one of those technologies that you're not going to be able to say and make a yes/no decision on every aspect of your life when it's because it's going to touch everything.
Right.
And so it's like at some point you do have to have some faith and trust, or a step farther, regulation and stuff like that, knowing that, hey, these questions are being thought of before they're just rolling something new out.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to putting your toes in the water, right? Yeah. And really starting to explore it and play with small integrations really, really carefully to get some understanding, get some familiarity, but before you're in there and you're holding on for dear life as things are happening that either are going too fast or having negative impacts. And again, I think we're in an interesting spot being a managed service provider, a security provider for organizations. It's a huge responsibility, right? And we want to make sure that we are, on the one hand, exploring every avenue to create value and be better and provide better security. And on the other hand, not making a mistake, right?
A protective filter for some of the stuff that can come down the pipe. I agree 100%. I think that is kind of why, if it's maybe not the main reason, but it's definitely in the top 3 reasons why somebody would hire an ISP, an MSP to come in and manage their technology is they want your expertise in knowing that, hey, don't put something on my system that's going to destroy my system or cause me a bunch of issues or whatever.
Or what lessons have we learned from other clients, right? That have done projects, that have tried to do some of these integrations. And, again, the more that we play with this, the more that we learn, the better our own internal knowledge base is going to be able to make those recommendations. So there's a lot of motivation for us to get involved. But again, I really think that caution is the word of the day, at least for now.
For sure. Let's change gears just a little bit and talk about, remote work and the new office, environment of what we're dealing with. Before COVID, it was a very small amount of people that worked remotely. Since COVID, it is a drastic shift in the other direction. We're starting to see it start to come back a little bit now. Where do you think this is going to wash out? Do you feel like, I personally believe the main thing is going to be a strong hybrid workforce, but where do you think it's going to wash back and kind of settle itself out at?
I'm totally aligned with you. I mean, I think hybrid is really where this is going to land. And I think, we can come at this from 2 angles. I think I'll start with just our organization, right? And, we had to really rethink a lot of processes that we had. We're an MSP. So from a frontline support perspective, this means people have tickets that come up or projects that gets fed in. We've got a bullpen, right? We've got people working together. We know everybody's, certain competencies, who that's best going to be routed to. And that was kind of intuitive when everybody's in the same spot. So when our clients went remote and when we went remote, we had to totally rethink our everything, our ticket flows, our processes, our triage. I mean, from A to Z. So we had to learn a lot very, very quickly. And I think that's had trickle-down effect now that we're back into hybrid, right? We've learned just feet to the fire a lot about a lot of our employees and who's best suited for certain tasks, certain triages. And so I think that we've gained efficiency from going through that process. And now on the back end, now we do have that collaborative atmosphere back. So I feel like it was a tough time, but we got a lot through the experience that has made a difference now that we're back in hybrid.
Yeah. So like when because we're fully remote now, we've got an office, but we subleased it out. We don't go up there anymore. Everybody works remote. We're way more productive and efficient as a remote workforce than we were as an office workforce. Maybe it's because we don't have the ping pong table that we play ping pong all day on, but
that might have something to do with it.
We definitely are more productive being remote. But now we also had the benefit, and so did you guys, of, being a business prior to that and having culture and having a lot of processes already developed to really just kind of had to shift and change a few things. It's interesting, though, where companies getting started today and making that decision of like, gosh, do we invest in office space? What technology is important? Are we going to be remote? And I think most people, and especially the workforce coming up, I've said this 1,000 times, I work with a lot of college kids, and I'm like, what are you most excited? Not one of them has said, I can't wait to see my cubicle. They all want to, they're all excited about, I want to do something, but I want to be able to work remote. I want to be able to, van life it and still work and provide value and purpose and all that kind of stuff. So what benefit do you think, or what challenge do you think a company that's starting now really needs to be looking at from a technology standpoint when it comes to a remote workforce?
That's a good question. I want to jump in real quick on one thing you said, because I think there's a fundamental difference. Your fully remote workforce, I think almost all, if not all, your employees are still here.
Yeah, they're pretty much local.
So you're still having those monthly get-togethers, right?
Correct.
Where you're getting FaceTime and you're building this camaraderie. This really has nothing to do with technology, but I mean,
it's an important aspect.
I think that's
Culture.
critical, right? I mean, it's borderline impossible for me to imagine starting a company where you've got, your first 10 employees and one of them's in Portland, Oregon, and one of them's in San Francisco, and one of them's in Dallas. Like the team building and the camaraderie aspect for creating a positive culture and happy employees, it's very difficult for me on a personal level to imagine that happening when you don't have some FaceTime. And a Zoom call or a Teams call ain't it.
It's not the same.
It's just not.
Because you have certain barriers up. You may or may not be being recorded. All these things are like, well, I don't want to say anything stupid and or say anything off color or whatever that could come back to bite me. And when you have some drinks with your team and an after hour, who knows what's going to be said. But you do feel closer when you leave. It's always a good thing.
I think it's important. So sorry for that aside.
No, you're good. That's a good point.
Yeah, on the technology side, I mean, I think really picking and sticking with a communication project management framework that makes sense for you, I think that's where I'd start, right? Yeah. And most of our clients are on Microsoft 365, so most of them are using Teams. Yeah. We've got a few on Slack. We've got a few on Zoom. I mean, it really depends, and finding that fit for you is important. Where I see issues happening is when you're using a lot of different media instead of really having a primary. Right. If you're relying on people to be on email and text and Slack and Teams or whatever it may be, really centralizing that so that there really is a defined expectation that this is where inter-office communication lives.
Right. Yeah.
Because otherwise, I mean, there's so much noise now and so many different channels. So my recommendation is there's a ton of good options out there.
Yeah.
Pick one that makes sense and incentivize people to use that and use that alone, because especially in the remote world, it's easy for stuff to fall through the cracks.
Sure.
So from a top level, that's it. I mean, there are a ton of like security and process stuff that I think is really important with a remote workforce, but that's kind of a different conversation.
Yeah. What's the other big thing that you see that companies, when let's say they've been office, they've done all that, but then they're allowing their people to go remote? We run into this a lot on the phone side, just because they're like, well, now, do I need to have a phone outside, or we moved to the soft phones and the web applications and those type things for phone side, that's no problem. But from the more physical and data-driven side of the business, what are things that people aren't thinking of? I mean, do people still need to be doing VPN connectivity, and what's things that they really need to be thinking about before they send that person home to do the job they used to do at the office?
Yeah, so VPNs are still widely used, right? And it's really easy for us to set up. It's really easy to connect on any device to those. I touched on SASE earlier, and I think that's really where this is heading.
Right.
To really think it's instead of having a lot of individual points, your computer, your phone, your firewall at your office that everybody's VPNing into, to have a single point that's kind of managing all of this. That's definitely where this is going. And you're starting to see it at the enterprise level. It's slowly starting to trickle down to clients that we're dealing with. I think the one recommendation, or the one kind of big hole that I see right now that has been a problem, continues to be a problem, and is something that we talk with our clients with all the time, is personal devices. Right.
Yeah.
So if you may have an employee who is issued a laptop by your company, but they may at home prefer to use their own computer. And let me tell you, their personal device doesn't have our security tools on it, doesn't have our remote monitoring on it, doesn't have all of the things that we need to do our jobs, to have visibility, to know that our policies, our security policies are being enforced. The moment that someone uses a device that we have no visibility on, we're kind of handcuffed, right? So making sure that people are conducting company business on company devices is the number one actionable recommendation that I can give you.
So how do you do that? I mean, besides policy enforcement or policy, cramming that down their throat, how do you how do you make somebody, or are there ways that you can monitor that to see that, hey, it's all coming from, us through our stuff or not? Or
this starts to come back to SASE, and there's a tool that's called Zero Trust. And Zero Trust kind of started on the device level, and essentially this meant that you couldn't run an application on a computer unless it was whitelisted by us. So if you tried to go and install a script or install some sort of application that wasn't approved on an organizational level as being business critical, your computer would literally not let you install that software. Networking design now is moving to Zero Trust too. So unless it is a recognized device, right, that is in our system that we know about, that is guaranteed a part of your ecosystem, any device, even if they have the proper credentials to be able to log in and access.
If it's not a whitelisted MAC address, it's not getting on.
It's not getting on. So that's Zero Trust network architecture. And that's, again, I keep talking about this. This is where I really think that things are going. And it's right now, it's really the best defense against unknown devices being on our networks. But no, without those controls in place, as long as someone has the credentials, they're going to be able to log in from whatever machine that they want. And that is worrisome to us.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense, because as soon as they, we'd say the same thing on our side for other reasons, but like for Jim and I have talked about this before. When you've got a service company or a trades company that does electrical work or HVAC, and you say, hey, just use your cell phone and all that kind of stuff, what you're basically doing is, let me slowly build your business for you, so that now you've got this a list of customers who are calling you on your cell phone device, your cell phone, instead of our company phone, that now you can just take off and start your own business with the business that and that's silly, but that happens so much. We had a story with one guy that was an HVAC company. The guy literally just stopped showing up one day. He had ripped the logo off the side of the truck, stuck his logo on it, and they had to sue the guy and go after him because he started a whole new business and just literally put a sticker over their sticker on their truck. And because people are brazen, they don't care, they'll do whatever. So you got to be able to protect yourself.
Well, and data security and access management is critical,
super critical,
right? And we're talking about this stuff, but having policies in place to where you're really stratifying your employees and their access to what they need to see and not what they don't. I mean, it's kind of related to what you were just talking about, but we really want to think through on an organizational chart level and really assign different groups, different policies to these different groups of users and make sure, again, that it's enforced. It's one thing to talk about in theory. Yeah. It's another thing to actually, on a daily, weekly basis, check and make sure that things are being followed, being enforced the way that they're supposed to. It's the old
trust but verify, right?
100%. 100%.
So with the SASE, you say it's mainly on the enterprise level right now and starting to trickle down. Is this going to be huge, expensive software that you're talking about, or is it really just more of it's a time and effort type thing to kind of institute the policies and procedures behind it? Or is it a bit of both?
Right now it's expensive, right? Yeah. And just like anything else, right? From endpoint detection or managed detection and response to even firewalls. I mean, all of these newer cybersecurity tools that are coming down the pipeline, they start at the enterprise level, and then people have to figure out how to scale them, right? And spread it out. So I mean, this is coming. I think right now it's probably prohibitive for most folks. The other advantage here is that we deal with a lot of clients in heavily regulated verticals, right? So a lot of healthcare clients, legal clients, financial clients, who are subject to, again, a lot of federal regulatory compliance stuff.
A lot of pit holes they can fall into if they don't know what they're doing.
And I will tell you, I mean, we were talking about SASE a little bit, but what I think is just as relevant is, compliance has been important. It's about to be way more important. I think you and I were talking about this
it's crazy.
Last week.
Yeah, it's nuts.
In how much emphasis is being placed by the government on enforcing these things, and it is coming for small business.
Yeah, and that's exactly who they focus on now. They're not necessarily focusing on the big guys because they're not the ones causing the problems. It's small to medium businesses are the ones that are causing problems.
And so, if you're out there listening to this and you haven't really, if you've thought, we're too small, like no one's going to be thinking about coming after us for a compliance violation. It's coming.
That's what they're focusing on.
I don't want to be the boogeyman, but it's coming. And this is the importance of really getting yourself organized and talking with someone who's been through these battles and is going to be able to give you the right advice to protect your business, because I know it's going to be a point of emphasis. It's coming.
Oh, for sure. We're seeing it on our side in a lot of different ways. You have like the robocall mitigation and all that kind of stuff that's super important. And what a lot of people don't realize, and especially small, telcos like us, who, we don't generate our own dial tone. We purchase dial tone from multiple providers, and so we're just kind of like our business is basically our special recipe of all the stuff that we know works really well put together, so you don't have to worry about it, right? But there's a lot of guys like us out there that just don't seem to care about any of this stuff. Well, if your provider isn't on the list of robocall mitigation certified, approved, and all that stuff, compliant, then you're taking a chance of having all of your calls rejected and not be able to make or receive phone calls at all. That's scary, but people don't realize that the government right now is really going after that. They are doing it. I have an email that I get, a newsletter I get every month. It's a laundry list of small telcos that have been shut down for just not being compliant, and something happened over their network that they didn't even know about, but because they didn't have the proper stuff set up, they're done.
It's a huge liability.
It's crazy. It's good that they're doing it, because I think it will, in the end, hopefully slow some of this stuff down. But it's still, it's not like it used to be where you would fill this stuff out and then nothing really happened with it. It's not like that.
Yeah, and this goes into a conversation I was having yesterday with another friend who's really in the PCI compliance space, right? So this is payment processing. Yep. And he said, he gave me the stat, and I looked it up, and he was right. The number one reason why, if you get breached, hacked, you have a quote cyber incident happen to your business. The number one reason why that doesn't get paid out by your insurance provider is if you are PCI non-compliant.
Yep. And
I went into a medical practice the other day where they showed me their payment processor bill, and it said $80 line item charge, PCI non-compliance fee. So it was literally on their bill. One, they've been paying $80 a month for this.
For not being
compliant. They've been paying a fee for this. And two, if anything happens to them and they try to file an insurance claim, that right there, that's it. They don't get a dime. So,
so my question with that, did they even realize that?
They had no idea until I asked them to look at their bill.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That is nuts.
Absolutely nuts.
Again, though, it's one of those, it's like, that's nobody's main function or role at a small business. That's just somebody has to be able to know to pick that up. And that's where vendors like you and like Magic Apple come into play, where we know all of that stuff and we can help to help you avoid those pitfalls.
Avoid pitfalls and gain efficiency, right? Yeah. There are other payment processors out there where we can, one, get them compliant, net neutral, and save that $80 a month. We're looking for anything that's going to make you more efficient, that's going to make you better, that's going to make you more secure. Sometimes it's also going to save you money.
Yeah.
So I know you and your team are looking for the exact same thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I went through it just the other day. If someone wanted to take a look at an internet bill, right? Yep. And we found a couple things that were extraneous, irrelevant on that bill, and we were able to go and save them a few $100. So,
and it's crazy to me. It's like people that on the phone side or the internet side, it doesn't really matter. But if you're not reviewing those bills on a regular basis, at least how many people just let that contract roll over? It blows my mind. I'm like, please review. We go out of our way to try to review our own bills with the customer. And we're always making calls on anniversaries and stuff saying, hey, can we get with you? A lot of times they're like, please stop calling me. So, okay, fine. But we'd like to review this with you because you guys may be paying for stuff that you're not using. Because we might notice you've got a bunch of extensions that aren't being used, that are dead, that you haven't been paying for. It's like, do you really need those or not?
You could also probably get that promotional rate again, if you ask.
Exactly. Yeah, it's exactly right. So who are you guys mainly looking for? You said 5 to, in that 50 user range. Is there an industry that you guys like to focus on the most, that you feel like you bring the most value to?
Yeah, I mean, I think for all the stuff that we just talked about, we really like organizations that are subject to regulatory, subject to compliance. So, the key ones for us, healthcare. So we're talking small to mid-sized medical practices, law firms, financial firms, professional services. That's really our sweet spot and our bread and butter, and where we have, again, the most breadth of experience with similar clients to be able to share some of those insights. Obviously, no proprietary information, but hey, we learned this from doing this project. This is going to help move the needle for you and your business. So yeah, that's where our overlap is. I would say 5 to 50. We have a few clients that are closer to 100. Yeah. That's probably about the cap for us. The economies of scale really change at an organization of that size, and it really makes sense to have someone internal. We're looking at doing what we call co-managed with larger organizations to essentially be able to leverage our fractional CIOs, CTOs, and help with some bigger picture cybersecurity stuff, but leave the front line, help desk support to an internal team. That seems to fit a little bit better for organizations of that size.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes total sense. So last time we talked, you came to one of our Thirsty Thursday events, and you were doing a gig. How'd your gig go?
Gig was awesome.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So this guy, his name is Sam Morrow. He just moved here from LA. I think he's from Houston or somewhere down in Texas, but he's like a kind of blues rock guy, and it was fun for me. His records are pretty keyboard heavy, so I got to play a lot of clav, a lot of fun whirly. Good crowd, up tempo. It's blues rock.
Where did you guys play?
Played at the Underdog, which is on Gallatin in East Nashville, which is my neighborhood. So,
very cool.
1, music was cool. 2, band was great. 3, 5-minute drive from my house.
Yeah.
That's like the holy trinity of gigs for me.
Of gigs, for sure. That's great. Well, dude, hey, thank you for being on today. I really appreciate it. It's a good conversation.
Yeah, this was great.
We leave
really
anything out? Do we need anything we forgot to talk about?
Man, there is so much more to talk about, but I feel like we covered some really important stuff, and hopefully there's some good takeaways for anybody who's out there listening.
Well, if somebody is listening and they want to reach out to you and get some help on everything that we talked about today, how do they find you?
Feel free to send me an email. It's Z Moscow, spelled just the way you think it would be, at WERAREBT, BachelerTechnologies.com, or just check us out on the web at wearebt.com.
Very good, man. And listen, again, I appreciate you coming on. I know you had a little bit of a drive and had to deal with this Nashville traffic to get down here.
I'm used to it by now.
Hope it was worth your time.
Yeah, this was great.
So, hey, that's it for this episode of The Wandering Worker. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Zack today. I know I did. Be sure to mark your calendar for our next episode, where we'll continue to deep dive into the world of The Wandering Worker. We'd like to thank our sponsor, as always, Magic Apple, for bringing you this episode. If you're not thrilled with your business phone system or your work from home experience, give us a shout. We've been helping people like you since 2008. So until next time, I'm Matt Lloyd, and thank you. Have a great week.